Hello, my dog lovers. Hi. I've been delaying this recording for a long, long time, but my team is telling me that I need to share my life story for everyone to understand how I got here and how I became a vet and a big promoter of natural health. I grew up in the Eastern Bloc in the communist Czechoslovakia. I was born in 1964, which is many years ago. It's hard to even comprehend. But my childhood was very interesting. The first kind of contact with animals was through my dad, who was a veterinarian, and he mainly did large animals and farm calls. And I remember our car used to smell like cow manure because he used to take our car through the farm, and then the rubber boots went in the back of the car, and it was pretty smelly. So that was my first contact with animals. And also we had a dachshund. Her name was Gerda. We lived in the former German region of the Czech Republic, 10 miles, 16 kilometers from the German border. And German names are very common. She was definitely very Germanic, very loving, but very strict and opinionated. And my dad used to say that she was the fifth child of his. And I think that may be a favorite child because she never complained and she loved him. But Gerda was a dog that kind of made me initially be afraid of dogs because she used to bite us as kids. We wanted to play with her and she didn't want to play. And then when she had puppies, she didn't want us to come close. So it wasn't the best first dog experience. As a teenager, my younger sister and I started riding horses. And in the Eastern Bloc, it was relatively inexpensive. It was about $1 every 6 months to ride horses anytime you wanted because all the clubs were owned by the government and basically financed by the government. But as kids, we learned hard labor. We first started riding on ponies, Shetland ponies, little tiny horses. And we mucked the stables and we fed the horses and we really learned how to care for animals. When I turned about 14, we started riding the larger horses, the regular horses. And I fell in love with a horse, a chestnut. Her name was Alpha, Alfa. And Alpha was a lovely horse. However, she suffered from very severe tendonitis. And as a kid, I remember watching her being ridden in the rink by other people. Just the sight of lameness broke my heart. I became really anxious about her well-being. And when she went through very challenging procedure called blistering, where they actually burned the tendons on her front legs to create more inflammation and make it heal, which was kind of a barbaric idea how to heal tendons. But anyway, I remember I was very upset. And that was the kind of key moment of me deciding that I wanted to be a vet. However, my dad thought that I should be an architect, and I secretly registered to a different program in my high school, and that was kind of directed towards agriculture and healthcare and animal well-being. And my dad didn't know for a year or so until I had to basically come clean and tell him that I'm not going to go to architecture and I wanted to go to vet school. And his first reaction was, but your sister wouldn't get in. And the reason for that was that in the Eastern Bloc, it was very hard to get to college, and two siblings would not be basically able to get to the same university or the same school. So, that was a little bit of a downer. And I think in some way it was good for me because I wanted to prove to him that I could do really well. I knew that it would be very hard to get in. And the first time around, I didn't get in. So my idea was maybe I should start working at the university as an attendant and try the next year. That was actually called year zero. There was a system where people who really wanted to go to university and study a certain field could work at the university and help for a very low wage and be basically attendants and cleaners and so on. So I started working at the university in 1982. and I worked for a professor that did research in toxoplasmosis. And it was the first really eye-opening experience about how animals are treated, because lab animals from mice and rabbits and rats were basically, injected with blends from organs of birds and other things to study toxoplasmosis, because the professor wanted to know what the incidence of the disease is in nature. So we had to do all this, and I remember it was super traumatic. And one of the most traumatic incidents was when I had to look after a horse that was infected with infectious anemia, which is a fatal disease for horses and very, very dangerous. And the horse would be locked in the stable. He would not be able to see the daylight at all. And I remember going to the stables and feeding the horse and thinking, like, this is not possible. I felt so helpless. And these were the times when I actually think I learned to block my emotions when I needed to, when it was just too hard. And so the second year after that, after this pretty horrendous experience, I got in vet school. And I remember having the first lesson in anatomy. I thought I would die because it was just so hard. And the books were like this thick and this big, and we were supposed to study from that. And it was all in Latin, and it was pretty crazy. But as time progressed, I obviously made friends, and the university years were really fantastic. I remember I was really excited about going into internal medicine and surgery. And we all loved the later years in the university because we've gone through the biochemistry and physiology and all that. And then there was the real medicine. And I focused on horses. I worked for a professor who did a lot of research in horses. I graduated thinking that I will always be an equine vet. But then it was getting hard in the Eastern Bloc. And I decided that my wife then and I decided that we would move to Canada. My sister already was in Canada, and we decided to immigrate to Canada in 1990. The first time around, we were denied immigration visa. So I changed my application to, instead of veterinarian, to veterinary attendant. And we had more points for being just regular cheap labor, and we got in. So that was an interesting experience as well. And then I remember arriving to Vancouver in August 1991, and it was raining cats and dogs. It was cold. It was horrible. I was thinking, what did we do here? But in 2 weeks, I got a job at the veterinary clinic. And as a young graduate, I had to learn many different things myself. And also I knew that I had to get my veterinary license in Canada. So I studied for 3 years, and eventually I got my veterinary license and work as a vet first in Vancouver at the clinic of my friends, and then I moved to Whistler, BC, which is a ski resort with a lot of dogs and a lot of different animals up in the valley from Whistler. So I started working as a mixed animal vet, mainly small animals, but also some cows and horses. And it was not the greatest experience because we had to do night shifts and emergencies. So sometimes I would work for 12 hours during the day, and then I would come home and I would have an emergency at 10, another one at 1, and another one at 4 o'clock a.m. And I would have to work the next day. So that was really hard, but it was also a really great experience with some of my clients. I learned tons from my patients and from my clients. It was a school of life, not only about health and medicine, but also about life. Clients, when they come to you with their pet, they open up. They don't really think that it's about them. So they open up about their life and their challenges and all that. And it was really great. Whistler was an interesting period because at that point in the 90s, I was still a conventional vet and, vaccinating and feeding processed food and using NSAIDs for pain control. But there were some crucial moments that made me realize that what I was doing was not optimal all the time. For example, I would give one of my patients, a young dog that got injured, an NSAID injection, and this poor dog was back 2 hours later vomiting blood. So I realized that these NSAIDs are actually causing serious problems. The drug company that we contacted actually denied any connection until a year later. They came up with a conclusion or a statement that indeed their drugs were causing stomach bleeding and that we should be careful. Another important step in my professional development was the case of Skokie, a golden retriever, who taught me how to treat ears better. Skokie was a lovely golden retriever who was actually scheduled for total ear canal resection because he was suffering from chronic ear problems. And I really didn't want to send him for surgery to the surgeon, to the specialist. And his owner and I were thinking about coming up with some sort of other suggestions and solutions. And I was failing with every treatment that I chose. So finally, I'm going up the mountain skiing with my friend Terry. And she said, Peter, why don't you just try raw diet? And I said, raw diet? Are you kidding me? Dogs are not supposed to get raw diet. It's dangerous. And then I remember that my dog, Gerda, our dachshund Gerda, was eating raw food, and that in the Eastern Bloc, in the communist Czechoslovakia, we were feeding raw food in the 70s and 80s. So we switched Skokie to raw food, and he got better. Within a couple of months, he was back to normal, and his ears were fine. So that's when I started feeding raw diet, and then I started being more interested in holistic medicine and homeopathy, and I really took homeopathy seriously. I studied with Dr. Richard Pitcairn, and then I went to study with human homeopaths because I felt that there wasn't enough progressive information in animal homeopathy, and I learned everything that I could, so I went to human homeopathy. It was humbling. Again, I learned as much as I could, and eventually presented a study on treatment of hyperthyroidism in cats. My own cat and about 6 out of 15 cats got better on homeopathic treatment, just homeopathic treatment, in cases of hyperthyroidism. My cat was diagnosed when she was about 7 or 8, and she had no radioactive treatment, no medication for hyperthyroidism, and she lived until she was 21 on just homeopathy, and she had normal thyroid hormone. And in 1999, I decided that I would leave the conventional practice and open my own holistic clinic. And that was a great experience once again. I had to learn to run business and had to learn to hire the right staff. And it was very stressful, but also really rewarding because I think I made the most client friends and I felt really appreciated. And it was really great to see the power of medicine as nature intended, as nature heals. In 2008, I had an interesting experience in meditation. I had a meditation teacher. It was a guided meditation, and I happened to be in the meditation in a black box. And I was trying to get out of the black box, and suddenly the walls of the box crashed, and I happened to be on the top of a waterfall. And I remember standing there and thinking, I want to jump, but I was so afraid of jumping. And eventually, I kind of saw my body keeling over and falling down the waterfall. And I ended up in this beautiful, crystal clear lake, thinking this is amazing. And it felt so right. And suddenly there was a hand coming back up from the ceiling or from the skies and tried to pull me back in the box. And that was the end of the meditation. I didn't really know what it was about until my partner and I went to Hawaii. And we took some pictures, and we were able to actually take my dog Sky our dog Sky. And I was looking at the pictures on the way back on the plane on my computer. And I see Sky standing in front of me. And I was at the waterfall looking up and having my hands widespread. And I looked at my partner and I said, I love doing the work, but I think I have to sell the clinic. At that point, I was really burned out, and I knew that I had needed to come up with some sort of way of helping more dog lovers and more dogs than just 10 to 20 or 30 a day. So this is how it happened. I sold my clinic and I started my online business. First, I thought I would just consult and give advice to dog lovers. But then I was asked to formulate a supplement. One of the raw pet food manufacturers asked me to formulate a replacement for calcium or for bone meal. I took the project on. I researched and studied and looked at different mineral sources and came up with alga calcarea, which is a algae-based calcium and mineral support. And we still have this supplement in our lineup. It's called Greenman. We started testing it, and I first tested on myself. We usually make the humans the guinea pigs first to make sure that the dogs are safe. So when I tested Greenman, I started feeling really energized and much more energetic. And then we started giving it to my dog and dogs of my friends. And we started seeing really positive changes. And that's when I realized that diet, as we have it and as we can buy it in stores, is no longer as good as it used to be when nature was pristine and we didn't make commercial food and didn't make processed food and all that. You know, the problem with food is that we use and overuse soils over and over and over, and it is financially not feasible to replenish all the nutrients back in soil, and the soil cycle is much faster than it used to be. So that's why our food is actually depleted. That's why tomatoes no longer taste like tomatoes, and food is much lower quality and nutritional value. So that was another aha moment where I realized that supplements are super important. And then as it's my habit, I try to take them to the next level. So we started making fermented vitamins, realizing that the fermentation increases bioavailability by 7 to 10 times. I started adding some organ support in the vitamins, and then we made probiotics and sustainable omegas and mobility support and liver cleanse, which is also great for reducing any immune agitation and toxicity level and mercury levels and so on. Then we came up with flea hex and tick hex, which is all natural flea control for dogs, and also skin spray, which is one of the most undervalued items in our store, because whoever touches it, whoever tries it, loves it. It's a wound healing and skin healing product, herbal product. And there is a story behind it as well, because my grandfather was a herbalist. He actually was an accountant until he was 60. And when he retired, he started collecting herbs, and he taught me about herbs and how to use them and what their effects are. And the results was skin spray. I've obviously opportunity to test it myself many times in practice with wound healing. I don't use any toxic chemicals and antiseptics and hydrogen peroxide or even antibiotics for wound healing. For most wounds, I just use skin spray. I dare to say that it's probably about twice as fast as normal wound healing. Personally, I have an anxiety whenever I don't have skin spray nearby. If we travel and I forget it at home, I really worry. If injuries happen, I would have to go to local pharmacy and try to collect different tinctures to mix it up, because I would never use polysporin or anything like that. You know, every time I learn something new and I kind of progress and I take it to the next level and try to learn as much as I can from my patients and my clients and customers, there is another transition and another learning. I learned from my dog Sky how to treat diarrhea by treating the spine and how it's related to the gastrointestinal tract. My dog Pax taught me how important hormones are when it comes to well-being and preventing injuries and keeping them healthy and long living. My cat Mina taught me how to treat hyperthyroidism with homeopathy. And whenever I feel like the learning is probably done, and maybe I should just retire and go for walks in garden and do photography, I learned into something new and something exciting. So I feel like I never plan to retire now because I realize that there is an endless source of learning. And every time I learn something new and I can use it to better the lives of my patients and dogs and maybe even humans, it makes me really happy. There's actually another story that I need to share. When we started making our dog formulas and supplements, people started seeing real difference, and they started taking the products themselves. And I thought, okay, maybe it's time for us to work with some human formulators and also make human lines. So we created the H plus line for humans, and we have the whole lineup from probiotics to liver cleanse and joint support and multivitamins and minerals. The Greenman minerals are actually super important when it comes to reducing the chances of osteoporosis. There was a study done with alga calcarea, which is one of the ingredients in Greenman, and it has shown to improve bone density by 1% every year for 7 years. I really hope that we'll be able to make a difference in the lives of your beloved canine friends and in your life as well, that we will also do it with sensitivity to nature and the environment and do it with integrity. I don't plan to be the biggest team and the biggest company, but I hope and believe that we are one of the best. I am not arrogant enough to say that we are the best, even though it is possible. It's up to you to decide. It's up to you to try the products. And I hope that you like the results. And if you have any doubts, you can just go to our website at peterdubias.com and see what other people say. That's even better than listening to me. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Give your dogs a hug for me. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and check our website. Bye-bye.